Okay, I bought this 2001 or 2002 Honda Acura EL. It's a Canadian car. It's the very same as a Honda Civic, but it's the Canadian. The Acura EL is only made and sold in Canada. So when I do any work to it, I have to look up the information for the 2002 Honda Civic. It's basically a Civic. Okay, and the job is to drop the transaxle, and it's popping out of second gear, and it grinds into second gear. So after looking on YouTube and reading the book, I've decided that this is something that I may be able to do myself and save a whole ton of money. So I'm going to give it a whirl, and I'm going to take pictures, for one thing, to show other people who haven't done it how to do it, and secondly, so that if I ever, when I'm putting this thing back together, and if I forget where something goes, I can just look on here and see. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this air box out of the way. One bolt here, need a long socket, there's a bolt down in here. Might have to pull the battery out, I'm not sure yet. I'll just play it by ear for now. And 3. Okay, that's 3 bolts. I probably just need the 1. Oh, that didn't sound good. Of course, I had to break something. Oh, the airbox is split in half. That doesn't seem right, but it's in half now. Perfect. That's not what I wanted to have happen. Oh, and there's another bolt, that's why. There are 4 bolts, 1 more here. Perfect. So I guess I get to glue this thing back together now. It is attached to a clip here. Okay, the clip is off. And the airbox comes out. There was a clip over here wrapped around some cables. I don't know if you can see that. That was attached to this thing here. Okay, here's with the airbox removed now. And that is the transmission in there. That's the one shifting lever. There's the weight on the end of it. There's the other shifting lever. Okay, now there's a washer. Oh, a couple washers. There's a plastic washer and a steel washer. Then this just comes off. And there's a steel washer and again another plastic washer. And then this one can come off. No washers in behind them, just on the front. The 3 bolts to hold the shifting piece on. There's one here, here, and one in behind. Okay, this is going to be my setup. I pulled the hood off. It's really easy. It's 4 bolts. Make sure you mark it. Use a pen or marker to mark the position before you take it off, but it comes off super easy. So it's out of the way. I have an overhead hook and come along, and a cable attached to the lifting eye supplied by Honda. on the transmission. So now I'm going to jack up the car and remove the wheels and drive shafts and take it from there. Okay, I'm going to try and do this with just taking separating the strut from the hub assembly. So 2 big nuts there, 1 little nut for the brake line there, and I'm going to unstake this nut to push the drive shaft out, and then hopefully it'll come apart without having to take the lower ball joint apart. I don't want to take the lower ball joint apart if I don't have to. Okay, I got the hub separated from the strut. Brake line is free. There's no stress here. Move this out of the way. I can pull this drive shaft out now. Okay, here we are. A few little miscellaneous things. One was disconnect the battery cables because you're going to have to pull the starter out. Then there's an electrical connector here that went right there. I think it's probably reverse. This could be the speed sensor over here. It also has a little plastic plug that went right there. It's going to stay behind. There's this slave cylinder line here that attached right there, and there's also a ground wire here that attached on the end of this, because I plan on caking this bracket and using it to lift the transmission to the ground using this lifting eye here. Next will be the starter, which is here. It's coming off, and then the slave cylinder over here. Okay, just a quick note before you disconnect the battery, make sure you know the code for the radio, or you're going to have to go find it from somewhere. So I had to look it up on the internet, and I actually had to phone a dealership in a different city to try to get the code for the radio for this car. Anyhow, the starter bolts, I've taken them both out. They're both 14 millimeters. The starter is ready to come out. Oh, I see its cable is connected to some cable stuff, but it's really difficult. The one bolt for the starter is way down underneath it. You pretty much have to remove it by feel or crawl underneath the car. Only 2 bolts holding it. Okay, I'm coming from, just so you know where we are, there's the front of the car. Right down here beside the exhaust shield is the slave cylinder here, and it's got a bracket and a plug. This plug and bracket are for the O2 sensor, which attaches to the exhaust. Move it out of the way. Take the 1 bolt out to take this bracket out of the way, and now the wire stays with the engine. The 2nd bolt, which I've loosened, will allow the slave cylinder to come off. Okay, now we have the slave cylinder removed, and you can see the this pushes the clutch push fork thing. Slave cylinder was here. I pulled the slave cylinder out. You can get it right out of your way. It's attached with a rubber hose. Careful not to short these battery post terminals together. One odd thing is the slave cylinder here seems to have a swiveling connection, and I suppose that's for engine vibration and so on. So this line doesn't break or crack. Anyhow, you can move that right out of your way. You pull this boot off now because it's going to fall off later. That goes over top of the clutch release fork. And then all my bolts, I'll just show you. You should have a system for collecting your bolts. I used an upside down box. Then I just take the razor knife and I cut some little X's through the cardboard. Then I push the bolts in and I label each one as to what they were. There's a slave cylinder bolts with a note that one of the bolts holds a bracket for the O2 sensor. Keeps everything organized, otherwise when you go to put it back you're going to wonder which bolt went where and if you've got them all, if you missed any or lost any or whatever. Okay, right below the slave cylinder is an engine mounting transmission bracket. So there's the bracket. 1 bolt mounts to the engine here. The other bolt over here mounts to the transmission. You can see the split is right down here. Oh. Okay, here we are under the car. This is the driver's side looking into the axle. So we're going to take out those 3 bolts there. That secures kind of the top of the tranny. And then there's one big, you can see there's 3 bolts on the bracket, plus one big one right there. Now, so that's 4 bolts there. And then we've got a stiffening bracket here, and another stiffening bracket over here. So we'll take off that bracket, those 4 bolts, and then we'll see where we're at. Okay, I took the 2 stiffening brackets off and the 3 bolts. So the next thing to do is I supported the engine also with a jack. I used 2 pieces of wood to distribute the weight on the oil pan. Don't put just the jack on the oil pan. This engine mounting bracket that's at the front, the one with the 2 bolts, 1.5 on the tranny, 1.5 on the engine. Well, the bottom one here is also on the tranny, right here. So it'll have to come out also, but I'm going to leave this engine mounted one up here in place. So the engine will be partially supported by this bracket. That's the theory. With the jack supporting under the oil pan, it should all be good. Okay, so now I just removed this. This is where the engine and the tranny meet at the driver's side, and that's the one big bolt there. So the other big bolt is, okay, we're on top of the engine now. Another big bolt is just beside the where the starter bolt was. You can see the empty starter bolt to the right hole, and then the big bolt for the tranny engine mount to the left. I got to take that one out next, and that is just right here. These are the 2 bolts I took out. You can see the one that was beside the starter is longer than the one that was down by the driver's side axle shaft. So just don't mix them up. Okay, carrying on from the front of the car. Get oriented. These 3 bolts I took out, or there's a nut, 1 nut, 1 bolt, 1 nut. I haven't taken them off yet. That secures it to this upper engine mount. I'm thinking I might take that mount right off with this one long bolt here to get this out of the way. If it's going to be a problem, we'll try and see. That was those 3, and then over here there's 3 more kind of hidden bolts. One is right in there where my little finger is. You can probably see it sticking out. The other one is down there. Right there. Right there. And the other one is down here. You can reach it easier from the bottom underneath the car, right there. I've taken the time to take all 3 are loose. So I'm going to pull these out. Okay, I've got everything out now, and I can see the tranny is starting to separate. Right there, you can see there's a bit of a gap opened up. I'm going to go ahead and take off this engine mount thing because I'm pretty sure it's going to be in the way. Okay, it was just easier to take this whole bracket off. So there's the two nuts, 1 bolt that all went to the transmission, and these went to the firewall. I'll just put it away as one unit over here with my pile of parts. I don't actually have a lot of parts here. Okay, so now I know I shouldn't. You shouldn't pry with screwdrivers, this kind of stuff, but I couldn't resist temptation. So I put a screwdriver in the crack here and just pried, and it's just separated, no problem. So the tranny is separated from the engine. Oh, there it goes. It just actually fell right off. Okay, so now the interesting part will be to see if I can get it to drop down, because it had to move quite a ways out to clear the clutch. So I'll see how that goes. Okay, it's kind of ironic that the lifting eye provided by Honda that I was using right there on the bracket is the big long bracket that goes way over to here, and that's where the grounding strap and the slave cylinder bracket all attached. but it's so long, it's preventing the transmission from dropping out, or at least getting any lower than this. The transmission still may not come out, I don't know. So I got to take the lifting eye, so I've got it resting on a jack right now, and I will take that lifting eye off and just simply put a bolt in there to attach my hook to, rather than this big involved lifting bracket. It's too long. Okay, I took the lifting eye out. Had to pull this, actually this is the reverse switch here. The other electrical connector down there is a speed sensor. But I had to take the reverse switch out. I just pulled the lifting eye out. It was attached to different spots, and I moved it so that it had two hooks on it. The second hook is now positioned where, that's the first hook over there, and I'm going to use the second hook here instead. I just re-screwed it into the same hole. So we'll try that.